archival work. There's a group of us, volunteers and interns in the department that are making documents digital, so I'm not the only one doing this. So the files are found in the paleontology department. These are from a man called John Leroy Kay. He had many hats on his head, but he first started as a field collector for the museum, and he worked his way up from field curator to acting curator to actual full curator, and he moved on to like the head curator of the paleontology department. And here's a picture on the right hand side. This is from a book. This was one of the very rare photos I was actually able to find of him. But basically these archives are all his correspondence between different museums, between when he's going to do work like this one. He's in Utah with these group of men. So there are also postcards to different magazines that he's representing the museum. And so we call them, this is his collection. So there are boxes and boxes and boxes of these archival papers, correspondence, postcards. There's even invitations to dinner parties, and they're all in these boxes. And so this first one, I picked out my favorite ones that I found, and I did them in chronological order so we can kind of keep this in an order of time period, because these are ranging from the 1930s to the 1960s. So this first one, if my handy dandy red squares come up, you can see that this is from 1945, and this man, Robert Witter, is writing to Mr. K, and he says, "Now that the war is almost over, I am prospecting for a position in the museum." So when we're transcribing them into a Word document for staff to use for their research, it's these little things that mean the whole difference of the perspective of the document, where are they coming from, why are they writing to us, and why do we have them in our museum. So the second one, we are moving to 1949, and I found this very interesting because let's see, my handy dandy red square again, the second to last paragraph, this person wrote a letter to Mr. K, and they're talking about wanting this fossil that they're used for an upcoming event called a dinosaur ball. And this is almost, you can say that this is almost a 21 plus night before it was a thing, because this newspaper clipping is from Pittsburgh Press, before it was the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, and this is from March of 1949, and this is from May. So this is an ongoing event that the Carnegie Museum had, or Carnegie Institute at the time. So they go in depth to say how this is like a fundraiser for the museum. So I was interested because, like I said, when you're transcribing these documents, you're of course reading them, and so I'm like, what is this dinosaur ball? What was going on? So that's how I did a little bit more research and found these news clippings. So here's another news clipping that's from May of 1948 about another dinosaur ball that the museum was having. So I found it very interesting that in the top right, this is actually students from, I believe, Carnegie Mellon, that they were with the art, and they were actually doing paper mache dinosaurs for us, because they were saying how it's a gala, and there's life-size paper mache dinosaurs, and I just thought it was a cool event, that it's the back then in the 40s that they were doing these awesome nightly events that we're still doing today. And in this document, as we're moving along, this man was so intrigued when visiting the museum that he actually mentions Diplodocus carnegii and how he's so fascinated about the size of the dinosaur. And fortunately enough, in this collection, we have, it's almost like the emails. They go, you can tell that this is from December 5th, 1945, and Leroy K is already writing December 7th, 2 days after getting the letter. He's already replying back to him. And it's just a follow-up of this correspondence that this man had with other museums and other people that were interested in the work that the museum was doing. So this is the same correspondence. Now we're moving on to December 10th and also December 17th. And he goes on again about saying that he will set this, Robert will send a check even for wanting this material that Dr. K will write or send to him. And he goes on to say many thanks for the documents and the pamphlet, and that he will use it in his research. I found this document interesting because, first of all, it's handwritten. Some of the documents that are in this collection are in the form of a typewriter, so of course it's easier to transcribe because it's easier font. But sometimes you get a challenge and you get cursive writing, and that is one of the perks of making them digital on a Word document, so it would be easier to read for us. So in this letter, this man is writing to Mr. K about a collection that he came across, and he's wondering if it's worth anything. Is it dinosaur fossils? What is it? So Mr. K writes to him saying that he will look at the specimen, and he actually, through his research, found out that it was the right lower jaw of a deer. It wasn't no dinosaur, so it was a bust. And so he's writing to Andrew Taylor saying, thank you for sending this species to me. This is what I found. And he's like, I will send it back to you if you want. If not, we can keep it, and so on. This letter we're now in the year 1951. And this man, Joe, is writing to Mr. K about getting a job at the museum. And it's cool because in this collection, we actually have what is his resume. You can tell that he's 27, married, and he goes through with the degrees and his work and his training. And so it's kind of cool to see what a resume looked like. And sadly enough, throughout, we had about 10 documents that were part of this just one conversation or this email thread between these people. And so he goes on to say that he wanted his minimum wage for the year to be $3,400. And so I looked it up, I did some research, and that is 75 cents for minimum wage. And that was actually, I believe, $100 above the norm for 1951. And sadly enough, of course, you're reading through the documents, you're like, what's happening next? Well, sadly, the man did not get the job. So Mr. K is writing to him, or I believe this might be his secretary at the time, and it says, sorry, after all this, we are not giving you the job. So that was kind of a sad input of after transcribing all these documents and finding out that this man didn't get the job. And in this document, we see that this person is just thanking Mr. K for letting him visit the Carnegie Museum, for experiencing this. And in the last sentence of the first paragraph, he's like, I also wish to thank you for the lunch you had in your very fine cafeteria. So some of these, they're not all just business. They have humor in them, and so it kind of brings you happiness when you're transcribing these documents. So what is the purpose of transcribing these documents into Word documents, or just spending time and just reading these papers? Well, we're extending the life of these documents. The fact that you are transcribing them onto a new digital era and scanning them in, we are able to extend the life of the document. Because paper deteriorates, there's a lot of times there were staples, and staples are a big no-no in archival work. Of course, it rusts and ruins the paper. So the fact that we take the staple out and then we replace it with a paper clip, and taking that paper clip off and scanning it, we're extending the life of the material, and we're also able to then, once we have the digital copy, to share the document just like I did in presentations, that it's an easier, and you can like zoom in, and you can even make files where you are able to search word by word. And that is why also it's awesome for research. The whole point of making these documents digital is to help staff members when they do research papers to find out this history that the museum has. So by able to go into a Word document and type up a certain dinosaur species, they can use this for their research and to add in like an extra tidbit of facts that happened at the museum. So that is the whole point of why there's a team of us that make these digital, and there's even points where maybe the digital document will be used in an exhibit, so it's a whole line of a new life and a new light that are shed on these documents from the Leroy K collection. That is my presentation. Thank you.